Mike McCool here in the Royal Examiner studio, and with me today is Melissa DeDomenico-Payne.
Very good.
Did I get
perfect? Yeah.
Yeah. I butcher the name sometimes, you know.
That's okay.
But that's okay. So, Melissa is on the town council now. She was appointed recently, and she's decided that she's going to run for that seat. So we have a special election on November the 7th. And the first question I ask is, why do you want to do this?
Yeah. Well, I originally threw my name in just to see if I might get a bite. I was always interested in public administration, politics, and things of that nature. And I saw that Lori was moving up to mayor. She lives down the street from me, or up the street from me. And I thought, well, she's sort of in my area. Maybe I don't know whether they did it geographically or whatever. But I said, let me throw my name in there, and I because there's also things to learn, many things to learn. And I did it. They interviewed me and said, come on.
Next thing you know, here we are.
Yep. And so then I thought, it really, I wanted to use this time as sort of a trial to see if, it might be a good fit for what I was looking for personally and what I could give. And then, as we approach, I thought, well, I want to do this a little longer.
Sure.
So that's why I'm doing the election. So we'll see what happens.
Well, Melissa is a lifelong learner.
Yes.
You have a doctorate in public administration.
I do. And part of that was because I thought, well, I worked a lot for nonprofits, and I started out in the master's program, but the professor said, you really should just do a doctorate.
Sure.
And because of the internet, back in the day, I wanted to do doctorate. I wanted to be a lawyer at one point.
Sure.
But back in the day, before the internet, they wanted you to quit work and do that full time. Well, I'd already started working, and once you start working,
it is hard to go back.
Yeah,
I've been there, done that. I know.
So that opened up the internet really opened up the opportunity for me to be able to do it. I would have never been able to do it if I hadn't been able to, work from home between 10 and midnight. So.
That's it. But, it shows important things. I know my daughter did the same thing. She did the Western Governors University, WGU, and it's a great program. And one of the first that was set up online, out west. It was far and few between to universities, and the governors actually got together and came up with a really good plan. So that was a great thing. So tell us a little bit about some of the things you have experienced so far on council, and where do you see yourself going in the future? What are you really passionate about?
Well, first of all, I did not know getting in how much would be really. I knew a lot would be planning, but I think I really didn't grasp the concept before I got in there of how much zoning matters, how much placement matters, how much you. I was always a systems thinker, but really, you really have to. And systems thinking was part of my doctorate as well. But you really, when you have any decision before you, you can't just think about the individual here. You have to think about the broader community and all the little intersections of all the decisions.
What's going to happen 50 years from now?
Yes, exactly. Right down the line. What does this mean for future councils if we make this decision now? And so, what I'm passionate about is setting up an infrastructure. Well, I don't think it's any different than most other people. We want to work. It's a cliche now. You want to work, live, and play, right?
Sure.
So, but you have to have an infrastructure in the community where people can go and get a job, and then if they get a job, they can afford to live. And then once they can afford to live and have their job, then maybe they can give back in some way.
Sure.
But if you don't have that whole position...
Yeah, it's a circle.
Yeah, if you don't have that position, then you've just got a situation where people are struggling to survive, can't contribute, and have negative attitudes toward everything.
Sure.
So, mine is really about, are we setting up a community where no matter who you are, you can reach your full potential? And so that means... Well, first and foremost, public safety. Everybody needs to be safe. I want to be able to go out and walk my dog at 3 a.m. if I need to without getting mugged. I don't want drugs, flooded through the community. I want to make sure I'm not just free reign of law enforcement, but I am very supportive of law enforcement in terms of making sure they have the resources they need. They need to keep up with training. They need to have their equipment. They need to keep up ahead of the criminals and the criminal behavior. So that's one thing. The other thing is revitalization. I love what's happening with Main Street. I love what's happening. I love the trellis. I love these opportunities. It's not that and it's not all tourism. I want to make things good for people who live here. So if I want to go out to dinner with my family, I want a nice place I can go. If I want to, have a night out, where could I stay in the community? As much as the tourists,
Sure.
And so, and then, as you're coming into the community, is this a place where you want to live? I don't want to be ashamed.
Right.
I remember years ago when Avtex was here, and you would say you were from Front Royal, people say, oh, people outside here would be like, oh, that place stinks, remember? And then, but it provided a lot of jobs.
Sure.
So there was good about it too.
Sure.
But I'm just saying that you want to feel pride. And when you feel pride, you'll keep it, But
Sure.
if it's dilapidated, you'll just be like, well, I'm not going to do my part to do anything
exactly.
different, right?
It does kind of breeds, like that. Yeah. It does breed discontent, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's a shame that happens, but that's kind of the creatures we are.
Right.
But again, if things are good, people want to be part of something that's
Exactly.
good.
And you want your taxes down too. I mean, obviously I'm fiscally conservative, which means that I don't want people to have to pay a lot out of when they've already paid their paycheck. They have a limited paycheck. They don't want to be taken too much by taxes for this. So what creative ways can we, solve problems and get what we need without making an overburden on the taxpayers?
Sure. Yeah, we need to do more with less.
Exactly. Yeah,
I think that's the
we like a
motto.
bargain, right?
Yeah, we want a bargain. But sometimes if you need it, you got to buy it because you got to think down the road. If we don't do it now, it's 10 times more next week. So sometimes we got to look at that. Or if we don't do this stage first, if we get the cart before the horse, then we're doing it over again.
And there are things
we've done things like that.
And there are things that we have to pay for. I mean, you can't. We're not all going to collectively get together and say, for instance, and build a water system. We're just not going to do that. We're not going to agree on where it goes or how it flows, or so we have to pay for certain things.
Sure.
So.
And a lot of things are mandated beyond our local control. The state or the DEQ, you mentioned water, they come down and said, you will do this.
Right. And VDOT with our roads makes sure that we do things, a certain way with signage and, how we design them and all that.
You mentioned zoning, and that's people don't really realize how critical zoning. If you look at, I always use the example, if you look at Winchester and you look at Front Royal, Winchester had about 50 years ahead of us on zoning.
Okay.
And when we look back, we see, well, why don't we have what Winchester had? Well, we could, and we're getting there. But because of zoning, you look at places like West Virginia, which has, people say no zoning. You build your mansion here and your trailer here. Zoning plays a vital part of what our community looks like and how it grows. And I lead all up to that to saying, I know Lauren in the planning department has finished the comp plan. That was great. That was a long time coming. So now I think we got to make sure council is on board, that they stay focused on things like that.
Right.
But the big thing that we hear is we have these ordinances and they don't enforce them.
Yeah.
Or if they do enforce them, it's selective.
Yeah.
And, so how do you feel about, our...
Well, there's a lot in there, but
it's a loaded question, by the way.
First of all, I also visited. I visited Alaska several years ago. They had no zoning in the area where I was either, and when you see that, then it strikes you why it's important to have certain things, but you also don't want to. You also don't want to cluster certain things, and I think about that. I know that's, probably people are going to go, oh my gosh, but that one movie, forget what it was, but anyway, the gangster movie where they were talking about, that they put, all the liquor stores and all the bad stuff in one area, to target people who are poor and keep them down, that kind of thing. So first of all, zoning, yes, is important. Is it selective? Well, first of all, the comprehensive plan I thought was great. I've only been, I'm sure I contributed to surveys and stuff that came out, but I did wasn't actively involved in the crafting of it, but when I read it, I thought, wow, this is really...
You could see how much work went into that.
It was a great document. I felt represented, there might be a few gaps in there, but very representative of, I think, the entire community and what their needs are. But it is a fluid document to a degree because, for instance, 15 years ago, how could we have known what technology would become, just in a short period of time, or what things we would face. So, so you can design the plan, but you also do have to realize that things come up that are, did we anticipate COVID? Any of that, anything that comes about, there could be a war, there could be whatever. And so we have to have a little ability of selectivity. So, and also, sometimes when you're implementing something, then you see what the problems are.
Right.
You say, okay, we thought this was going to be the way it was going to work out this way, but it didn't. And so now we got to, regroup. We might have to make decisions that seem, not consistent with what we had planned, but... and
it's okay to make a mistake as long as you say, hey, whoa, we made a mistake. Yeah. Let's go back and correct it.
Right.
Who would ever thought we'd have 15 vape shops on our entrance corridor?
Right.
So
and we
that's a
learned
little
from
exaggeration, but
no, and that was one of the things I noticed when I was applying. I was like, I don't know that we need all this, but then there's there's two pieces of it. One is if we don't feed into them, they won't survive.
Sure.
Just like the cash loan places.
Sure.
There was a while when they were all popping up.
Yeah.
And now they're gone because of, of whatever.
Right.
So I think, demand is one thing.
Sure.
That's one issue of it. But the other is that when you have places... clustering them together, if we don't have a rule in place, then they are going to cluster together.
Sure.
So we have to look at, and then there was a guy who actually came in and exposed us to, hey, they're not all the same either. And, those of us who don't do that had no knowledge that, there are some folks who feel that what their product is medicinal or whatever.
Sure.
So it's an educated process. And I think that's, a piece of what... is important to me is people have to realize that at the time we make decisions, we make it with what we've got available to us. And I feel like people give us what they can, but the community's out there. If they know a piece that we don't know, or they feel like we don't know, share it. Let us know. Don't wait till after we make the decision and then complain. It's easier to be part of it. You know.
I think that's true. Many of us have been on boards or in positions that have to make decisions, and people go back, well, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. You make the decision with the information you have, and then all of a sudden you get on a board and you realize, whoa, I thought I knew everything about it. I didn't realize, well, the state requires this, the feds require this, the county requires this. It's not just one piece of information. So it's a big difference, and your eyes are opened when you're on council things.
Right. And you are again going to make decisions I try not to regret decisions. What I try to say is, look, I've learned since then this, and so one of the things I'm a stickler on language, and because I do a lot of grant writing, and and by no means a lawyer, but if I see a gap in a contract, I will say no to something because of that. Because I'm thinking, I want everything buttoned up nicely before I'm going to say yes. So that may look like I'm, well, why didn't you see this before, or say, but that's how it is. If something's not buttoned up nicely, I'm not going to say yes to it.
We see a lot of that in our ordinances where they'll use words like shall or may. All of a sudden, well, wait a minute, what's that mean? We think it's going to be enforced, and then they have that may word in there.
Exactly.
Or, so little things like that. Words make a difference, and I think we need to be clear so there's no doubt. And I think that's the thing, too. We pass an ordinance, but then we let this person appear to get away with it, and another person is being forced to do something. I think that's kind of a national thing that we're seeing now, where one set of rules for you and one set of rules for everybody else, and we're seeing that in the local, or at least the appearance of it. And a lot of it is not true, but you have that optics.
Well, and you may not and there are times we go into closed session and we get legal information.
Right.
And we're not allowed to speak to that legal information. So what happens is the public may not hear that right away.
Right, yeah.
Because we can't share it because, whether it's a lawsuit or, whatever sort of legal ramifications there are. And so if people don't have that piece of information, they might think, well, why'd you
make that decision?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, but because we were considering the legal ramifications, which also have all,
it'll come back and bite us.
Oh, yeah.
All of us. Affect all of us.
Exactly.
It's a lot of work. That's what I think you found out. It's just not showing up to one or two meetings a month. It's a lot of work.
Right. It is.
So, well, I hope you are successful. I mean, we have 4 individuals, I believe, running for 2 seats.
Yes, I know. We didn't start out that way.
No, it didn't start out that way, but...
And so now I've got to, ramp it up.
You've got to get to work. You've got to get to work. Are you planning any meet and greets here in the near future?
I'm going to be walking the streets out there, some more. I just
you can
did
add that to your resume, streetwalker.
Exactly. That'll get me far. But I have to, so I'll be out and about in the neighborhoods. Right. I am going to be down at, I do tend to go to open houses and things of that nature if I can. And so my information will be on there for anybody to contact me anytime. And that's one thing I want to convey to the public too, is I know everybody's busy. They're not going to be able to just be down at a town council meeting or a public hearing or anything like that. We're available all the time to hear feedback, internet, phone, whatever.
Sure.
And I personally, again, like internet only because then I have it in writing.
Right.
And I can remember. It's
send
easier
me an
for
email. That's what I tell people. Send me an email.
Yeah, I got a date and I got a time and I got and the information. But so it's really it's really important that you feel free to contribute to the process. And so anytime people want to reach out to me.
Okay. What I'll do is I'll put your email address and whatever contact information you have, I'll put that here in the story with it. People can reach out to Melissa and give her a little feedback. And if you have questions, you're available, right?
That's one.
All right. Good. The election is November the 7th.
Yes.
We have early voting starting September 22nd, which is like tomorrow. I mean, not quite, but it'll be here before you know it. Mm-hmm. And of course, if you haven't registered to vote yet, you still have time. Please, your vote is important, and it does make a difference.
Yes, and thank you so much to the Royal Examiner, because I really do take your videos, and when I'm going on a trip, I'll plug it in and listen to it, and I really appreciate the information, to be able to catch up on information. It's great. So
you mentioned the internet. It's like I said, we started it in 2016, and of course the internet's been around since the early 90s. But it's amazing where Mark and we would go over to the council meetings and the Board of Supervisors with our camera, and that's before you had all that camera installed. Yeah. We'd sit there for hours, and people would say, "What are you doing here?" And no one had ever broadcast a council meeting, and people just 3 people would show up occasionally. A lot of times be nobody in the audience.
Yeah.
And we see it now, so we're going to take all that credit.
Yeah, it's a great service.
Yeah. A lot of communities don't have that.
Yeah.
Of course, then that's kind of what forced the swag things that we have now. We got almost all our meetings are broadcast, and that's something that's good. And I thought, I said, we're going to take credit for that.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I don't think anyone will mind, but we appreciate it, and I think that's a great thing to keep the public informed.
It is.
No such thing as too much information. So I think we need to do that. Again, thank you for running. I think it's great. I think more people need to do it. And you ask, and they say, "Oh, I'm not going to do that," but it's okay. Try it. You never. If you don't try it, I always tell people that are running, I said, you're doing 99% more than the average person.
Yeah.
And everybody talks about it, but they don't get off and do it. And I think it's great. More people need to run. We have elections now with one person running.
Yeah.
And nothing's contested. That's not good for us.
Yeah.
I think we need that. More than one person running.
Right.
Yeah, and so hopefully someone will write in.
Well, and your skin will get thicker too.
It will. Isn't it amazing? Isn't that amazing? All of a sudden, you bite your tongue, and you're not quite, you're a little not as sensitive as you used to be.
Right.
I get that a lot. I know. Again, appreciate it so much, Melissa. Thanks
you.
again. Be
Thank
sure you
you.
come back before the election. We'll do another one of these or two, just to
okay.
keep people posted. After you get out there in the street and
Okay.
get beat up a little bit, you
Okay.
can come back and share your stories.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Again.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Take
it.
care.